What's the common thread among mohawked babies, aliens, safety pins, and death by crushing? Find out on this episode of Watchbots!
Hi, welcome to Watchbots, the podcast about the joy of watching cartoons, the melancholy of nostalgia, and the crushing banality of day-to-day life. I'm Ben. I'm joined as always by Dave.
Hello, Ben.
Hello, and Shaylin.
Hello.
Well, I'm armed with a cup of coffee, and I want to start with this. The haters and the trolls on the internet that said we wouldn't make it to week 2, you can suck it, because we're here, and we're doing okay, I guess. I lost my train of thought. I'll edit this out. So
998 to go.
So after week 1, guys, after week 1, how are we feeling? Pluses, minuses, things we can improve on? What do you both think? Let's talk to the public about this.
I, for one, would like both of you to chew some gum in advance. I know we're all in separate rooms and I can't see you, but I can smell you from here.
Well, that was rude. Wasn't expecting that, but I will brush my teeth more often. I'm down to like once a week, so I'll start brushing more, maybe daily. What did I like? I listened to episode 1 about 53 times over the past couple days, and I'll tell you, the only thing I liked was the sound of Ben's sexy voice. Everything else was garbage, but I think we can improve on that, and I'm ready to dive into this new episode.
It's ironic that you bring up sexy voice because I've always had a theory that I have low testosterone. It's just something I felt for a long time. And as I painstakingly edited the episode, it's just confirmed it in my mind. And I realize now that I'm so obsessive over things like just editing and all this little minutia that I wouldn't have expected, that I'm guessing that by January or February, like I'll be wearing tissue boxes for shoes and have 4-foot long fingernails. And honestly, that may have been inevitable anyway, but I think this is just another step in that direction. But we push on. So a couple of housekeeping notes. So if you're on the feed, you'll already have gotten the first normal episode of Watchbots, but also our first mini-sode, Watchbots Prime. We're going to try to put those out weekly as well to give a preview of the next week's show. If you're lucky, you'll just get me sort of rambling on into the ether for 5 or 10 minutes, but just to give you a little sneak preview. By the time this episode is up, we should be up on all the major aggregators like Apple and Spotify and Stitcher and TuneIn and My Chat and all of those. So we'd really appreciate it if you've listened in week 1. If you can go to your platform of choice and subscribe, rate, give us 5-star reviews and all that good stuff. As always, you can send stuff to us through Twitter at WatchbotsPod or email at watchbotspod.com. I also will just very quickly plug our Twitch channel, which is twitch.tv/watchbotspod. We don't record this live, so by the time this is up, I will have tried a broadcast on Saturday, December 1st. It either will have gone really well, or it will have been a complete disaster, and I'll never do Twitch again, but I just wanted to note it now, in case you never hear about it again, and that's kind of what it is. So I don't want to spend too much time living in the past, but I just wanted to introduce a quick segment, guys. I'm calling it Stuff That We Messed Up or Simple Facts That We Forgot, or, if you prefer something shorter, Stwim Must Ftwiff. So just going back to last week's episode of the Games Master and G.I. Joe, I noted one thing that we bunked up. Is there anything you guys wanted to add into that, or do you want me to just jump out with this fun fact?
I'm going to let...
Go ahead, Shannon.
I was going to say, I'm going to let you jump in, but I might have to add on depending on what it is you say. I'll let you lead, though.
Same here.
Okay. So the characters, and we spent most of the episode calling the antagonist of the show the Games Master. The title of the episode is, in fact, the Game Master. Now, whether that's just a fuck up on our end, or God forbid, a lack of continuity from the producers of G.I. Joe. I guess I can't say, but I feel like it's our duty as responsible protectors of cartoonage, which is really good and strong wording, to get this right. And I just wanted to note that. So anyway.
Yeah, a big mea culpa to our listeners out there. Sorry about that.
Mea culpa. Mea culpa.
Mea culpa.
All right, so let's move on to today's show. And today we're watching a cartoon I had never heard of before Dave brought it to our attention. And that cartoon's Fantastic Max. So let me just read the Wikipedia entry because I do research, okay? So it centers on a diaper-wearing toddler with a mohawk named Maxwell, Fantastic Max Young, who has adventures in outer space with two of his toys, FX, a pull-string alien doll from a planet called Twinkle Twinkle, an AB Sitter, a C-3PO-like android made of blocks. So, Dave, what is this, and why the fuck did we watch this?
Let's talk about what Fantastic Max is, and I'll ask the question: what isn't Fantastic Max? It's a timeless tale, just as you said, Ben. It's about a baby that travels across space with his toys, flies around in a baby bottle-shaped rocket ship. His catchphrase is, among other things, "Dirty diapers." Most storylines, you'll find Max in the beginning of the episode doing typical baby things, goo goo gaga, and ticking off his older sister whose age we never learn. She could be 4, she could be 17. Depends on the episode. But all of that baby stuff is a grand facade. For some reason that's never explained, because he always goes on space adventures with his toys, AB and FX. During those space adventures, he faces off with bad guys who are the perfect foils for whatever Max wants to do that particular episode. And then he returns home to his inattentive parents, who never understand or never know that he is gone, that their 16-month-old son is gone. So pretty standard fare, not unlike other cartoons of our time, I think. That's what Fantastic Max is. And what is Fantastic Max to me? Why did I make you watch this? Fantastic Max, part of the fantastic world of Hanna-Barbera. Do you both remember that?
Obviously.
Yes, of course.
Okay, good. Shows like Pup Named Scooby-Doo, Pirates of Darkwater, which was awesome. And I just remembered that the other day. The New Adventures of Johnny Quest I was really into. I watched Fantastic World of Hanna-Barbera all Saturday morning long. I missed soccer games to watch the Fantastic World of Hanna-Barbera. And at the center of it all, the rock of it all, was Fantastic Max for whatever goddamn reason. I watched it religiously, mostly because I guess I'm an insane person. I was fully invested in a baby that misbehaved and traveled off into space, battled bad guys. It fascinated me, and I don't know why. So I picked Fantastic Max for several reasons. One, no one else I've ever talked to, aside from my sisters, has ever heard of this show. And I wanted to make sure that it wasn't some like reoccurring dream I had as a kid, that I had it so much that it actually became a reality in my memory, to make sure that it was actually something that somebody decided to make and it was actually fucking real. And I wanted to show the rest of the world why I am the way I am today, which is a 34-year-old man with the mental age of a 4-year-old who rhymes really, 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 really poorly. And I'm just eager to explore this show with you both as a semi-functional adult. So that about sum it up.
So now that we have got you on the psychiatrist couch, I think our hour is about up.
You know what the music means.
Well, we'll talk about the music in a second. I don't know. So I thought this was truly, truly horrid, and we'll get into the episode in a second. But when you hear Hanna-Barbera, you usually think of a sign of quality, but this is a disaster. With the amount of cartoons that had merchandise, I always like to look on eBay for things like old TV show merchandise. It's a really cool hobby. I looked up Fantastic Max. There's one out of print VHS and one book that was published by the BBC. And that is it. And if that's not a harbinger for what this is, I guess I don't know what is.
Sorry, the show ran for 3 seasons, and it has 0 merchandise attached to it, and no one remembered it. I don't even know how it got past like the pilot episode. Yeah, it's baffling to me. Researching this was really, really difficult because there's not a lot out there, and in this day and age of the internet, like, that's incredible.
So Last week, we watched a show that gave me nightmares, The Game Master. I feel like this show was an actual nightmare. It was just... I don't know how to explore it better than that, outside of none of it made sense. There was no continuity. The characters were either terrifying or irritating, and like none of it, I couldn't connect with any of it.
I'll close this off with this before we get into the episode. Do you know what Max isn't? Fantastic. Okay. So the episode we watched, the appropriately named Attack of the Cubic Rubes, which aired on October 15th, 1988. This one was written by the acclaimed John Bonacorsi, who wrote for the Smurfs. He didn't do a ton else. So we watched this on YouTube, and the video, when I watched it for the fourth or fifth time, had about 400 lifetime views, which again, today, always a good sign for the quality of a video when it has 400 views and has been up for almost a year. Now, mind you, that's like exponentially more listeners than we currently have on this podcast, but we're trying here. So anyway, as noted, we always like to add the proper context to things, and I think it's time to introduce a little context to this. You want to know what you're seeing, you want contextual feeling. Contextual feeling. Makes you feel so smart. Helps to understand the art. You want that contextual feeling. Yep, so this is Contextual Feeling. We'll just quickly go through the top movies and TV shows and music of the day. So the top 3 movies in the country the week of October 1988 we're talking about: The Accused, Alien Nation, and Punchline. I don't know if there's a lot to talk about in there.
Yeah, no, I've never seen...
No, yeah.
I haven't seen any of those movies, so I've got nothing.
Okay, well, this is good podcast. I don't either. So top TV shows, boy, there is some gems here. So we talked about The Cosby Show last week. Wouldn't you know it? Cosby Show, number 1 this week as well, followed by number 2, Roseanne. So just a couple of monsters. And number 3, The Apprentice.
Really?
No.
Was that on that early?
No, it wasn't The Apprentice. It was a different world, but The Apprentice would have been more thematically appropriate.
Agreed.
And then the top 3 songs: Red Red Wine by UB40, which is a hit for sure, Love Bites, and Groovy Kinda Love. So with that in mind, hearts are ready, our minds are ready. So let's dive into this. So the opening credits and the opening theme, we could probably spend the next hour on this, but I think it's worth listening to the whole song here. So let's take a listen.
Fantastic Faxts! Well, along came Max, and the fun time started. I'd laugh until I'd cry. He's dynamite in those 4-ply diapers. He's my kind of guy. Well, there goes Max on a big-time mission. Will he lose or win? Yes, it all depends on the 4-ply diaper and that safety pin. He's tops, I mean terrific. I don't know another word that says it's so specific. Woo! Well, here comes Max and his fun time heroes. It's victory again. They owe it all to that 4-ply diaper and that safety pin. Fantastic Faxts!
We have a lot to unpack with this. Who wants to dive in? I have a lot of thoughts, but somebody else talk about this.
All I know is that 4-ply diaper and that safety pin played into this episode 0 times.
And that's unfortunate because for the listeners out there, here's a visual of the theme song. There's plenty of scenes where Max is using his diaper as a weapon to stop bad guys. It's clogging space vacuums. It's covering up bad guys' faces. It's super weird, and I was very disappointed as well, Shaylin, that this it did not come in, not play a factor in this episode.
Dave, you glossed over something that I think is like horrifying. And I'm actually horrified that you've now glossed over it. You mentioned Max using his diaper as a weapon. And yes, that is true. But what you didn't say is that means that he is like nude from the lower half down and they obscure it in Austin Powers style. It just immediately, 15 seconds into the show, it's horrifyingly uncomfortable. But, I think this opening ends up being a real microcosm for the episode all the time, because it's a minute long and there's just, we're just playing for time right at the beginning. And let me give you an example, just right out of the song.
These tops, I mean terrific. I don't know another word that says it's so specific. Woo!
He's tops, he's terrific. I don't know another word that says it's so specific. Like that line means nothing. It's, 7 or 8 seconds and it means nothing, but it has to go into the episode so we can meet the minimum length. And this is a theme I'll come back to a lot, is everything in this episode felt like we have nothing to say. We just have to get to the 22 minutes. Did you guys feel like that at all?
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
In researching this for this episode, I watched multiple episodes of Fantastic Max, which is I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. But the terrific specific rhyme is a microcosm for the entire series. I think it's just like they were like, first draft, one shot. Let's just, this is fine. Let's just put it out there, and the kids will eat it up. Even the premise of the series is like that. Like, he's a baby, but he's also a spaceman, and he flies a baby bottle for a rocket, and he uses his diapers to fight bad guys. That's it. It is so just fucking weird. That's the only way I can describe it. But it could be, things can be weird in quality, but this is poor quality.
In some ways too, like when I was watching, I was kind of like, I bet the people who created the show and had the brainchild of these characters and like, oh, this kid's gonna go to space, like they were probably pretty happy with that, and I can see them being happy. But then when the scriptwriters got a hold of it and they were like, well, what are we supposed to do with this? It just fell apart.
Yeah. And I mean, we want to take the bright side and look at things pretty positively, and we'll get to that positive stuff, but it's a really weird opening. Like it's almost unsettling, which is probably, again, because I'm not an alpha male by any stretch of the imagination, so I was intimidated by the cartoon. But
that's for sure. Yeah.
Now that we're about 45 minutes into our episode, let's get into the episode proper. So we open up with a really healthy family dynamic. Max is misbehaving. His sister Zoe is being borderline abusive, and their dad is just sitting quietly. Let's take a quick listen.
Make Max play somewhere else. Goo goo gaga. Max, stop it, you destructive little creep.
So Max is coloring on Zoe's ass, which is really not a cool move, and he is a little creep, but Zoe takes a swing at him, which is generally not cool. But this touches on something too, and Dave, you'd mentioned this earlier. So Max is a baby. You can tell by the way he says goo goo gaga. Nothing says baby like that, but
he's 16 months old. Yeah, to be specific.
Okay, and
I don't know another word.
Damn it, that was my joke.
And that's safety pin.
Shit, I lost my train of thought again. So Max is a baby, but he goes on these amazing adventures. Now I'm going to plant the seed now for something that blew my mind later. I wasn't sure if any of this was real or not, so I'm just going to leave that out there as a little tantalizing bit. So anyway, Max wants to color. So he speaks with A.B. Sitter, who is a plastic man that looks like a popsicle. Dave, is there like a reason for this? Why he is sentient and alive, or are we just playing along with this?
So he looks like a popsicle, yes, but he also looks like a popsicle dressed like a butler. And he sounds like C-3PO a bit. It's hard to describe him, but he's like the father figure for Max. Whenever Max goes on his adventures, AB is the one to say like, "Oh, you better not do that, Max. We have to be back before dinner time," or whatever. So that's the character of AB, and that's pretty consistent throughout the series.
Okay, that helps. And we have a lot of AB to come, but he's like an old grandmother, and he's just the most ineffectual character I think I've ever seen in this kind of cartoon. Max is a baby, but he does talk a lot, and maybe some of this was the audio quality. We did watch this on YouTube, so we're not watching like a clean DVD copy, but he's kind of hard to understand. Let me play a clip.
But I need an outlet for my artistic impulses.
Now, he's saying artistic impulses. When we were watching it and I was sort of half paying attention, I swear to God, I thought he said autistic impulses. Do you guys hear that at all, or am I just unabashedly a horrible person?
I mean, you are a horrible person, but I heard it too, so maybe I'm one as well.
Seeing as how I watched this a lot as a child, I was familiar with his speech impediment, so I was okay with it. I didn't pick it up until you had mentioned it. But what is so Ben? You had heard autistic impulses. What is an autistic impulse? What would that mean?
I mean, this is not a show, I think, where there's strong writing and strong dialogue, so it could have meant nothing. I mean, even if he had said autistic impulses, which would be really bizarre. I'm not saying that it wouldn't be bizarre. It probably wouldn't even be like the fifth strangest thing that you hear in this episode. So,
oh, absolutely not. No.
Yeah, but Max is very difficult to understand. So it's very important that Max gets Zoe's crayons. So Max sends AB and FX to go get the crayons, and then they blast off. Max has a spaceship in his front yard that's kind of shaped like a baby bottle. And let's take a listen what happens when they get in the spaceship.
Max, I can understand that these crayons are objects of some pride to you, but you can't see where you're going.
Details, AP, details.
Do you even know how to get to this cubic planet?
Good point.
You might get the sense from this that there's nothing happening in this episode. And I think the clip that we just played for me illustrates a couple of things. And one is that like the music cues in the show are all really insane. There's not really a score or anything, and that's not a big deal, but you go from silence to these bizarre music cues, and there's this weird techno babble with all the cuts and stuff. I'm just going to compare it to Hitchcock. You can agree, you can disagree, but it's got that feel to it. Like it's just sort of surprising. Everything just feels very, very haphazard to me. Did that come across for you?
Oh yeah, there's a character we'll get to later. He has a theme. He has theme music that's attached to him. Like, so sometimes he appears on the screen and the theme song plays in the back, but it's sporadic. So you only get it a couple times. And it's really haphazard, really poor quality. And I don't know how this made it through Hanna-Barbera's quality check. All their other cartoons were fantastic. And this one's just like, the creators were like, whatever, it's fine.
I struggled with this episode so much, you guys. I'm still trying to process what we sat through.
And that's what Fantastic Max does. I think that's what made it so successful, is just rendering people speechless.
Yes. We'll go with that.
Rendering people speechless. Again, the top quality stuff you're going to get out of Watchbots. So when they're in the spaceship, I noticed something odd, and it just keeps coming up. They continually make references to Max learning things, and not like baby things. I guess this is baby things. I'm an idiot, but hold on. Let's listen.
Really, Max? Do you think this is the proper time to work on our fine motor skills?
So that's the first example, but they talk about him reading parenting books and all of this weird stuff, and I just found myself thinking, like, was this supposed, like, the cartoon's not educational at all, but is there some kind of value that you're supposed to impart to it? It's really, really bizarre. I actually really liked it. But AB says something else in the spaceship, which it fucking pissed me off because it's not true. And would you guys like to know what he said on the spaceship?
I would like to know what he said on the spaceship.
Absolutely. Tell me now.
Okay.
Dip me in polyurethane. You really are fantastic, Max.
And I take offense to that because as we're discovering, Max is not fantastic. He's not fantastic at all. So we're about 5 minutes into the show at this point, and in my notes, I've already written about a dozen times, I don't understand anything that's happening. The entire show is just these weird-ass one-liners that can't possibly hit the intended audience of children under 7. And I admit, I haven't watched every episode of Fantastic Max, but it can't be this hard to grasp, right? Like, this is just, it's weird. and it's not weird in a way that is really enjoyable. There's just things happening, and we're about to get to a moment where my mind was legitimately blown. But were you guys feeling this? I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
So for me, it goes back to that terrific specific line. It's just so like, even the puns, like they have some okay puns. I wouldn't even call them okay. They're terrible, but like it's like they went from a joke and they were like, all right, we need a minute or like 30 seconds of writing or something to get us to the next punchline. And so you have like these string of puns that are just tied together very, very loosely. And that is the episode. And that is every episode. Because I watched multiple episodes of this. It's every single episode where they just like string together these puns and hope like, oh, I think this is the episode. Sure. Print and publish. We're good.
It kind of felt to me like someone had taken the time to sort of write down, okay, a robot who's in space and helping a baby survive, but the baby's really advanced or whatever. Like they put everything on note cards and then sort of shook them up, put them in a row and said, okay, that's an episode. We got this. You know what I mean? Like, it's not that the jokes in particular are that bad. It's that within the context they're being used, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and we're about to hit the ultimate example of that. And this is where the episode brought me all the way back in. And let's listen to what Max says when they finally land on the square planet and jump out onto the brave world.
Either of you guys know the words to Color My World?
Just to translate, because again, Max is hard to understand. He asks his two toys if either of them knows the words to Color My World.
Well, I'm going to back you up just half a step. When they land on the planet, everything is black and white, shades of gray. And it's an episode about crayons. Okay,
well, that's all true, and I understand that now, but the real meat of this is Color My World is a Chicago song from 1971. From 1971. Now, I would grant, perhaps, even though the episode aired in 1988, it was set in the 70s. I guess that's possible, but there's two really weird points to this. Is one, I can't even fathom who this joke was for. I would love to know, because as I'm saying it, like I'm laughing because it's so funny. But like the funny thing about Color My World is it's a 3-minute song, and the first minute and a half are completely instrumental. There's maybe 4 lines in the entire song. Like it's one of those lines you don't have to think about it, but the more I think about it, the more amazing it is. Like I'm getting so galaxy brained about this one line. It's driving me nuts.
Why does Max know this song? That are his parents like playing it for him before he goes to bed at night? Like, how does he know this? He's like a space traveling baby, but he's also just a baby still. That's what threw me for a loop. I'm with you, Ben. I just the more I think about it, the worse it gets, and the more down the rabbit hole I go.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'll just watch the whole run and see if this ever comes back up. I'm sure it doesn't, but
maybe Max is a big fan of Chicago, just the band.
Could be. I think that's certainly possible. Everything's out there on the internet now, but who knows what it was like in 1988? Things might have been different. So I will warn you, dear listeners, that I'm probably going to end up playing some clips out of context, because that is what this show is. It's less a plot and more just moments in time. And I just want to take a brief pause to play maybe my favorite line in the entire episode. And I know that there are a lot of them, but here's one for you.
Don't stifle my creativity at this critical stage in my development.
Max, have you been reading your parents' books on child rearing again?
So the reason that's my favorite, and maybe this doesn't apply super well in audio, is that's a 12-second clip. AB ends his talking at 8 seconds, and then there's 4 seconds of complete silence. Just no answer to the punchline, no response, just 4 seconds of complete silence. And it's just so sweet and so rich, and I absolutely loved it.
That fuzzy noise you hear in the clip, that's not like poor audio quality either. That's giant sentient crayons coloring this cubic planet. And so AB says his line, and there's 4 seconds of just watching these crayons go to work. It's in just like weird silence. It's unfathomable that this I'm going to say it over and over again. It's unfathomable that this got made.
The crayons, Dave, were the next thing I was going to go to. So I'm glad you brought it up. So as you mentioned, Max has the crayons, and I think that the mission is they're trying to color in the world. And this becomes important later because, well, it just does. But FX makes the crayons big, and Max moves from coloring himself to ordering the crayons around. And like you said, Dave, there's this shot of him ordering the crayons around, and he looks like crazed and feral. Like, it's fucking crazy. He's actually kind of scary looking. So he moves from like a doer to a manager, and immediately, like, I'm thinking about the time period, and I'm like, oh, is this a metaphor about American manufacturing, and we're moving from doing things to telling people how to do things, which is all obviously crazy. But when you're watching Fantastic Max, this is where the mind goes. So we'll put the gif of Max's face on Twitter if you want a little bit of nightmare fuel there. Finally, about a month into the episode, something happens, and two things appear. They're rocks, they're people. I'm not sure what they are, but their names are Alan and Neil. And how do we know that their names are Alan and Neil? Well, let's find out together.
I'm Alan.
I'm Neil.
In a world that is, I think, built off of imagination, their names are Alan and Neil.
I had to listen to that over and over again because I was like, is that supposed to be like when you put their names together? Is it like a portmanteau or something? Am I missing like a really obvious pun? And I listened to it over and over and over again. And I tried to look up like different combinations of their name. And no, it's just Alan and Neil. It's so bad.
Do we know if there are references to someone? Like, maybe we're just being dense. Are there famous cubists out there that are named Alan and Neil?
Well, of course, there's Neil Gaiman, and then there's Alan Tudyk, the actor. So that's probably it, if I had to guess.
Or like if they're in space, so it's like Neil Armstrong, and it's supposed to be like an astronaut thing. I don't know.
No, I'm quite confident it's Neil Gaiman.
No, I think it's Neil Young and Alan Rickman.
Okay.
Yeah, that's who they're representing.
Well, I'm sure all of them are wrong, but it's good that we're trying, right?
That's such a defeatist mentality. We're really supposed to be breaking this down, not hurting each other's egos.
Yeah, let's bring each other up. Let's not fight again. I don't like to fight. So what about Alan and Neil, Ben? What do they do?
So their defining characteristic is that they really like color. So they ask Max to color them in because they are also in grayscale like the rest of the world, and then they themselves start coloring, which again is explicitly what Max came to do. I was reminded in some way of the movie Pleasantville, where everything's black and white, and then Tobey Maguire has a sexual awakening, and he starts to color the world in with Jeff Daniels. And, it's supposed to be about culture, but this is just, it's kind of a thing.
Well, the 16-month-old baby in this episode has a sexual awakening as well. I think it's very much like Pleasantville in that sense.
Oh, I'm uncomfortable.
I think you watched the wrong episode, Jalen. This got really weird.
I must have tuned out for a little bit there.
Yeah.
That's the Fantastic Max fanfic. Fanfictistic Max. Well, that one didn't hit the way I had hoped. But in the interest of time, let's move on a little bit. And so we're introduced to Dumpin' Jack Trash, and he shows up in a big vacuum truck. And when Dumpin' Jack Trash showed up, I had no fucking idea who he was. But again, Dave, this is a recurring character, right?
Yes. According to Wikipedia, it is. But I don't remember any other episodes with Dumpin' Jack Trash. I didn't hit any other episodes during my research either. But he is a recurring character. And in the context of this episode, it's clear that Max knows who he is.
Okay.
And we didn't bring along your rubbers.
Like I said, I'll just play a few things out of context here and there. But back to Dumpin' Jack. I really like that his name is Dumpin' Jack. That really hits like the 3-year-old in me. But Dumpin' Jack also has a defining characteristic, and that's he's a little bit of a musician. So let's introduce ourselves to Jack.
When I find the fella who brought this color, I'll twist him up like a chocolate cruller.
If you weren't sure that he was a rapper by the sweet beats and the cool rhymes, just that excellent scratching plays under about 75% of what Dumpin' Jack says in this episode. So he shows up and he's apparently the villain because he starts sucking the color back up out of the world. So the stakes are getting really high. He's mean and nasty, I guess. I didn't really want to play all of Dumpin' Jack's raps because there's about 15 of them. But Dave, you gave me a little late breaking news here. And I want to play one explicit one that you could consider slightly problematic.
Yeah.
Come out of hiding, you color crazies. There's nothing you can do that's gonna faze me.
Yikes.
Can you for the audio quality there is pretty poor. Can you read the lines yourself, Ben?
Well, I didn't write them down, but the term colored crazies comes up, which is just real bad. Even in 1988, there's no way that like it's astounding. I don't know how that ever passed any kind of a board, and it's not cool for Dumpin' Jack to say that. And I really don't know what else to say about that line, but I felt like, again, we had a duty to go through it.
I think the character of Dumpin' Jack is incredibly racist. So you take that line and it's awful. And then he's also removing color from the world. That's his big thing. He wants to remove color. And he's through his shitty rapping, he's appropriating Black culture. So it's just he is a super problematic character when you break him down and start listening to what he's actually rhyming. It's terrible.
Yeah, the rhymes are not good. Like the character, problematic. Read into it, don't read into it. The rhymes are really bad, and I will also point out that it took me a 22-minute episode, maybe 17 minutes to realize that he was supposed to be rapping and not just sounding like a lunatic, so that was good.
Shaylin, you brought up the rhymes. I wrote down what the rhymes are. Would you guys like me to read them off?
Yes, please.
So as far as I can tell, Dumpin' Jack has 13 raps in this episode, and I didn't write down all of the lines because I'm not fresh enough to kind of have that rhythm, but the rhymes are color and cruller, crazies and phase me, dismayin' and crayon, and we'll get back to that one, joltin' and molten, bounders and flounder, chosen and hosen, jerks and works, trashin' and smashin', vandals and candles, crazily and paisley, see and me, mover and hoover, squirt alert, distraction compaction,
Wish I had one of those.
Don't we all? Wished and squished, constellations and consternations, and finally spud and mud. So Shaylin, you say the rhymes are weak. I don't know. I think this begs to differ with you. But Max, to combat the villainy of Dumpin' Jack, takes his newly sentient crayons and sends them into battle. And Jack responds accordingly, and he has a few words to say.
This situation's a bit dismaying, being attacked by some runaway crayon.
And I felt Jack's pain at that point because I was truly dismayed at what I was seeing. But Jack pulls out a flamethrower and he melts 4 of the sentient crayons. Like they literally die. And I think that fits under the cartoon death category. So I'm gonna chalk that one's up.
I'll put that in the we'll put that in the infographic.
Thank you. Yeah. And by that ones, I mean those ones, of course. Jack melts the crayons. The crayon wax is running all over the planet. So it would have to be molten. Max and his friends get hit by the molten wax and don't die. So I guess that's a plus. Maybe gravity or physics or something is different in whatever planet they're on, but they just get washed away like it's a river. Then Jack pulls out his vacuum and the heroes start to get sucked up. Max, as always, tries to be the hero, but let's hear how AB and FX respond.
FX! AB! Don't let go!
Goodbye, Max! Don't forget to eat your vegetables!
This is an amazing clip for a couple of reasons. One is Max, for all his flaws, he is being heroic. He wants to save his friends. I timed it out. AB lets go of the rock after 1.7 seconds, and he chides Max about eating his vegetables on the way back. Like, he's such a weird, unlikable character, but I loved him. I don't know. Did anything stand out about that clip to you guys?
Somehow that robot man crying out about vegetables was still more attentive in terms of a parent than the parents in this episode. So I will applaud AB there for actually paying some attention to this small baby who's traveling in space.
Well, he is a babysitter, so he does bear some responsibility for the child.
Sure.
I agree with you, Shailen. He's Max's father figure, and that's not just in this episode; it's throughout the series, and that's sad. That's a really sad thing when you think about it. Like there are these inattentive parents. You know, go back to the first clip you played, Ben, where he and Zoe fight, or Max and Zoe fight. You'll notice that there's absolute silence from the father after she asks him to help. It's not because you cut the clip early. It's because the father never responds. So I think, you're giving AB a bit of a hard time here. And I don't think he deserves it because he's just a put upon parent, trying to keep Max alive in this world. But also, why does he give up so quickly? Like it was like he just wanted to die. Right? He's like, don't give up. Let's go. It's over, Max. I can't make it anymore.
Maybe that's true. That's a very nihilistic view of the popsicle babysitter, but hey, let's roll with it. So Max then fucks up Jack's truck and it explodes into a mushroom cloud, which normally would portend bad news, but don't worry, everybody's okay. But the thing is here, Jumpin' Jack, maybe not that bad a guy.
Dumpin' Jack.
Oh, Jesus, did I say Jumpin' Jack?
You did that time.
It's almost like it's Jumpin' Jack Flash. I'm going to say it. But anyway, maybe he's not such a bad guy because as it turns out, Alan and Neil have stolen Fantastic Max's ship and they are vandalizing the galaxy. You don't generally get these kind of layers in a children's cartoon. And I'm going to go so far as to say Alan and Neil are your classic trickster figures, or in other words, you might call them...
Translation. Your little geometric goofballs have done this before, and now we've gotten them started again.
So thank you, AB, for that. They're tricksters, they're geometric goofballs. These two are on the loose. But I want to take a quick step back because, again, Max's mission coming to the planet was to probably color in the world. Can we agree on that point?
Absolutely.
Yes.
And they're trying to catch Alan and Neil because they are also coloring in the world. I don't know if it's just that they're coloring indiscriminately or they're shitty at coloring. I mean, if you watch the episode, Max is no great shakes himself. What do you guys think? Is there a message here? Is it sloppy?
So
I don't know.
Less than sloppy. Maybe it was sloppy, but I took it as a commentary that the conquerors were more okay in doing the same exact thing as the natives. There's like an empirical thing going on there. Too much?
The conquerors. The conquerors.
They're colonizers, right? Like that's what we're supposed to take.
Did you say colonizers?
No, I said colonizers.
Colonizers. Very good.
Now who's making this awkward, Shailen?
Yeah. Who's having the flubs now?
So I didn't go that deep into that, but that is a fantastic reading, Shailen. I was upset because as shitty as the episode was, it was kind of fun to hear Max talk about his artistic impulses and don't stifle my creativity and all that. I was like, oh wow, I didn't think they talked about this in the 80s. My parents certainly didn't. But then apparently it's all for naught because that is bad. If you're, according to Alan and Neil's behavior, that is bad to go around and color and you need to stifle creativity. That's what I got from this, and I was insanely confused by that. I don't know what the show was trying to tell us.
Well, that was your first mistake, assuming it was trying to tell you anything. But that kind of deep dive, without that, we wouldn't exist. So I guess we have to go into it that way. So now the crew, Max and AB and FX, they're in Dumpin' Jack's truck and they're driving around and they're sucking things up. And the vacuum truck is literally sucking up like stars and comets and, probably important things, while Alan and Neil are just painting. But somehow Alan and Neil are the bad guys. And there's a moment where we break the fourth wall, and I'm going to play it for you and we'll see how it works in audio form. It may be something I have to explain, but bear with me.
Now, folks, don't go adjusting your TV set.
With all their fancy painting tools, those bombs are making us look like fools.
Relax, Jumpin' Jack. Give me the wheel.
What you can't see in audio form is during that whole clip, either Alan or Neil, I don't know which one, for Christ's sake, spray paints the camera red. and the screen is just a solid red for that entire 13 seconds. And I did GIF it, and we will post it to Twitter. But again, it's just the whole episode, it just feels like we're wasting time. We're just making like these really long visual gags or jokes with no ending because, baby, we got to hit that 20 and a half minutes. We got to make it through. We got to get through the episode. And just, I couldn't get enough.
I had in my notes in that moment, laziest animation ever, period. Spraying the screen so we don't have to animate a high-speed chase. And really, like, it's when you're reading a story and the car's about to crash, but instead of talking about the explosions going everywhere, because that would be hard to do, you say, his eyes were frozen on the dashboard. He couldn't tear them away because you're just too lazy to try.
That's a really good point. The other things I was thinking of was it just goes along with like how they just put these gags and puns together and not think about anything else about the episode, like a story or a plot. Like, so now the show is breaking the fourth wall. Like, they're just, okay, yeah, we can do that now. That's what Max is. Never happens again. They don't do it again. So it's just like, again, it's like the inconsistency that this whole show is built on. It's maddening, really.
Yeah, it's weird. It's kind of fun. I mean, you know, the show dragged like madness, but these weird, bizarre moments pop up. They're like these little nuggets. You just got to hold on to them. So Alan and Neil are caught. They're on the rings of Saturn or something. It's kind of lame. But anyway, they get sucked into Jack's truck and they are immediately sentenced to death by compactor, which, again, fantastic. You know, you sons of bitches want to paint in the galaxy, you're going to get crushed, and you're going to get crushed goddamn fast. But Max, because he is, in the end, a man of the people, won't let it happen, and he has to be a hero.
Go ahead, Jumping Jack. I dare you. Oh, no.
Max, can't your assertiveness exercises wait until later?
Max jumps on the conveyor belt, and he's willing to be compacted to death, and his two friends, AB and FX, do nothing, which, you know, I guess that's what they do. They don't really add anything to the episode, but Dumpin' Jack, seeing Alan and Neil and Max heading toward a certain gruesome, bloody death, he has a little change of heart.
I might not be as bad as I wished. There's no way I can let a baby get squished.
Truly a wordsmith. And Shaylin, you said the rhymes were bad. And I refer you back to what we just played, that is not really true at all. And he's the next Funkmaster Flash.
That rhyming couplet weaves a rich tapestry of a character that is Dumpin' Jack. And I'm right there with you, Ben. You don't get any better than that.
Yeah. And so then they move on to a discussion about productive ways to fill their artistic impulses. And Neil and Alan, they're on probation or something. They're coloring in constellations. It's pretty fucking stupid, actually. But I think where we really need to get to is the end of the show. And mercifully, our last scene is with Mom and Max and Zoe watching TV. Now, I had spent the prior 20 minutes or so thinking that this was all Max's imagination. You know, think about Muppet Babies, think about something like that. They go on these crazy adventures, but it was all in their minds. But then I truly, truly had my mind blown when they played a clip from the TV.
We interrupt this love scene for an update on last night's amazing news story. Scientists are still baffled by the brightly colored forms in the sky. If you have any information, please call the Astro Tip Line.
And there is so much to unpack from that. One, we are now to believe that adventure in the real world of the cartoon, if that makes sense, that it really happened, right?
Yes. Shaylin?
You're blowing my mind here a little bit because I've gone full circle. Initially, I was thinking imagination, and then I was like, oh, this is totally reality. And then I just, as we were listening to the clip, I was like, maybe he invented that too. Like he's imagining something on the TV because he's 16 months old and doesn't understand what the adults are saying.
So you're coming into an Inception scenario.
Yes, that's where I'm at right now.
That's possible. And I can't really think of a reason that wouldn't be true. But I think either scenario is completely crazy. And maybe this plays into your theory, Shaylin. It ends with him saying goo goo gaga, which again, he can talk, but he has the Goo Goo Gaga as like a ruse to fool his family. Like, it's crazy. It's a crazy, crazy ending.
Yeah. So if let's stick with that it's reality, right? Or that he's an actual space baby. The show never explains like how did he become a space baby? How did his toys become like sentient? Like, it just leaves so many questions that a 4-year-old, like 4-year-old me, should never have to answer. And you may have enjoyed the craziness of this episode, but the more I watched it, the madder I got, because it was just like, this is so, why did my parents let me watch this? These are formative years for a child, and I'm just sitting there in front of the TV watching this weird garbage. It's so, I'm so mad. I'm so pissed at my parents. I'm going to go fight them.
I'll be honest, I wasn't expecting that kind of emotional outpouring, but just, we really have to tap into the anger and the rage here. We got to get to the meat of the matter. So that's Fantastic Max. So as always, let's use our dual rating system. And the first one, as always, would you show this show to a kid now? And Shaylin, let's start with you.
I would be hesitant to show it to my kid who repeats everything that he hears. If only because I wouldn't want to hear about crazily rhyming with paisley. But I don't think it's harmful necessarily. I didn't have as a major problem with it in terms of entertainment or offense. It was just really confusing.
So that's a yes, no?
So I wouldn't turn it on for a child on purpose, but I wouldn't rush to turn it off if they happened upon it. How's that?
So in a 2-word rating system, you gave a 35-word answer.
Don't confine me.
Okay. Dave?
No. And that's it.
Terrific. See, I'm torn. I lean towards no, but then I remember all the talk about parenting books and fine motor skills, and maybe there's something to it, but no, I wouldn't show this to a kid. Let's also rate it on a scale of 1 to 5 4-ply diapers.
And that's safety pin.
And Dave, you can go first on this one.
1 4-ply diaper, no safety pins.
Shaylin?
1 ply on the diaper, 0 safety pins.
Oh, damn. That's harsh.
That's interesting. After watching the show, I'm 100% convinced that the showrunners and the writers, they thought of the titles and they went from there. Like, this one's called Attack of the Cubic Rubes. And Dave, you watched one that sounded pretty perverse. What was the title of that one?
That was called Journey to the Center of My Sister, in which Max and friends take a Fantastic Voyage-esque trip into the center of Zoe. It's horrifying.
Yeah. So, I think it's hard to judge Fantastic Max too harshly, because when you go from that kind of concept, this is what you get. And it's weird, and it's not as fun as I think the G.I. Joe episode last week was, but there are nuggets. So with that, I'm going to say no plies on the diaper, but 3 safety pins. And I think that really concludes the matter.
That's sound reasoning. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So Dave, as you subjected us to this week, you're leading our game. So why don't you give us the rundown?
Sure. So as I'm really the only one who watched this show out of this group, and based on the YouTube videos, probably the world, I thought I'd hit you all with some Fantastic Max knowledge. So welcome to the game of Fantastic Facts! I will be giving you multiple choice questions based around the show and its production. I had to go into the production of the show because there's not a lot of facts around Fantastic Max. For every correct answer, you get a point, and for every question, we most likely lose a listener. So let's go.
Can I ask a quick question before we go?
Go ahead.
Can you spell Faxts?
It is Faxts.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure we had it right for the show notes. Proceed.
Yes, you're welcome. Fantastic Facts! One of the following was the original title for Fantastic Max. Was it A, Space Baby, B, Baby Blastoff, or C, Rocket Baby?
It's got to be Space Baby.
Ben?
Baby Blastoff.
Shaylin, you got a point. It was A, Space Baby. Ben, do you have a buzzer for this episode, or are we still...
No, I mean, no, we don't. I mean, I could just make horrible noises into the microphone.
What kind of fucking rinky-dink production is this? I'm out here, I'm writing this game, and you got nothing for me.
And that safety pin.
There we go. All right. Fantastic Facts! In one episode entitled Close Encounters of the Carrot Kind, yes, that's a real episode, Max and friends encounter a giant rabbit who wants to kidnap and eat Rudy the carrot. That rabbit's name is A, Heavy Hair, B, Fatso, or C, Corpulent Critter.
Fatso.
I'm going to agree with Ben on this one.
You both get points.
Yes.
It is indeed Fatso. The 80s were a wonderful time.
We need a new pet rabbit in my life. I need one, and I need to name him Fatso.
It's terrible that even, in the 80s that we were fat shaming rabbits. I think that's bullshit.
Yeah, pretty terrible when I read that. Third question. Fantastic Facts! Creator Judith Rothman has also had a hand in developing one of the following shows. Camp Candy, the John Candy animated vehicle where John Candy owns a summer camp and acts as a mentor to the camp counselors. B, Life with Louie, the Louis Anderson animated farce that chronicles the depressing but ultimately uplifting childhood of comedian Louis Anderson. Or is it C, Kevin's Meanies, the cartoon voiced and written by comedian Kevin Meaney that shows a young Kevin and friends dealing with bullies in pre-adolescence?
I'm going to say Life with Louie, but I have a coda to this after we have the answer.
Shaylin?
I'm going Camp Candy.
Shaylin, you got a point. To take the lead, it is, or to keep in the lead, it is indeed Camp Candy. Kevin's Meanies, not a real show.
That's a real shame. And I was going to say, Dave, you've stumbled upon the next at least 2 episodes of Watchbots, Camp Candy and Life with Louie. Unfortunately, Kevin's Meanies is out of the running. But if anybody wants to give us a production deal to put that together, then hey, Twitter's open, baby.
We are game. Fantastic Facts! All right. Goldie, the Space Gypsy, a one-off villain featured in the episode All in a Babe's Work, had a unique catchphrase. Was it, "Fear my gypsy tales"? B, Goldie, the Space Gypsy? Or C, well, wipe my bottom and call me polished? Ben?
If I had to guess, it's the last one. That just feels like this show the most.
Okay. Shaylin?
One of those definitely is what her catchphrase was, for sure.
which one was the catchphrase, Shaylin?
I mean, I guess I'll go with the second one, but I cannot believe any of those are in a children's cartoon.
Shaylin, you are on a roll here. It is, in fact, B, Goldie, the Space Gypsy. That's right. The catchphrase is just the character saying its own name. So that's a real treat there. Shame on you for not getting that, Ben. Next question. Fantastic Facts! Which is not an actual episode name? Is it A, The Baby Who Fell to Earth? B, Guess Who's Coming to Dinar? Or C, Baby Stardust in the Diapers from Mars? Ben?
Baby Who Fell to Earth.
Shaylin?
Baby Stardust.
Shaylin, you're on a roll. It is indeed... no. Yeah, you're right. It's sorry, I messed up there. What am I doing? It is indeed Baby Stardust in the Diapers from Mars. That is not an actual episode name. Baby Who Fell to Earth is an episode, and Guess Who's Coming to Dinar? I think I'm saying Dinar right. It's spelled Dinar. That is an episode and a reference to the Sidney Poitier film, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner.
Oh, see, I thought you were saying that was the Sidney Poitier film, which is why I didn't guess it.
Which is on par with any Fantastic Max episode, I think.
I think so. So what round are we on? 70, 80?
This is round 33. Shaylin has won the game again, so you've continued your episode streak there, Shaylin. But I've got 2 more if you want to hear them.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Oh, man, I can't wait. All right. Fantastic Facts! Fantastic Max was part of the Funtastic World of Hanna-Barbera cartoon lineup. Which one of these shows was also in that lineup? Was it A, Police Academy the series, B. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures, C. The Dukes of Hazzard cartoon, The Dukes, or D. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kids?
Police Academy.
Shaylin?
Butch Cassidy.
You were both wrong. The answer is Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures. But I'll have you know that these are all actual shows, including Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kids.
I actually remember that.
That one I wouldn't have known, but I do remember the Police Academy cartoon. Remember they had like the toys, they were handcuffs, but they were actual hands that would grab your wrists?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was fantastic.
Yeah, I think they were called handcuffs.
I loved the Police Academy cartoon. Maybe we should do that some other time. It won't be as terrible as this one. And the last fantastic fact, Fantastic Facts! Theme song composer Michael Trevera wasn't just a one-hit wonder with Fantastic Max. He also composed music for which Saturday Night Live skit-inspired cartoon series?
What the fuck?
Bear with me. Is it A, The Completely Mental Misadventures of Ed Grimley, B, The Whimsical Wonderful World of Doug and Wendy Weiner, or C, The Marvelous Tales of Fernando Lamas? Shaylin?
The Marvelous Tales of Fernando Lamas.
Ben?
I think it's the Ed Grimley show, if only because I have a vague memory of that show actually existing.
Ben, you've got a point there. It is A, The Completely Mental Misadventures of Ed Grimley, The Marvelous Tales of Fernando Lamas, and The Whimsical Wonderful World of Doug and Wendy Weiner are not real at all. That concludes Fantastic Facts! Nobody wins, everybody loses. Thank you very much.
I feel like Everybody Loses is a good descriptor of our game segment so far. We're really killing it with these. So let's close out on a high note. Let's close out on our mailbag segment, which we don't have a name for yet. We'll figure that out. But if you want to send a question in for us to answer, you can send an email to email@watchbotspod.com. And today's question comes from Richard Gearbox. In a Toy Story scenario, would you rather fight to the death against 50 G.I. Joe figures or one Stretch Armstrong? Bear in mind that the Stretch Armstrong would also not be bound by the laws of physics, so size very definitely does matter.
I take G.I. Joe.
Okay.
any particular reason why?
Because I feel like in a scenario where physics don't apply, then I become easily suffocated by the Stretch Armstrong. Smothering. This is my concern. Smothering.
Okay. So the question was, who would win in a fight?
No,
who would I rather?
Who would you rather fight?
Who would I rather fight? Yeah, I would rather fight Stretch Armstrong. I just feel like in a world where physics don't apply, I feel like 50 G.I. Joes would be overwhelming, more so than a flexible, stretchy man.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Ben, what about you?
I would take them both, but I'm just that hardcore. So, why choose when you can take them both on?
Well, you better up that testosterone then, because you'll need it for that fight.
Soon enough. So, anything else we want to cover about Fantastic Max? I think, we've hit the gamut with this episode, but any last points?
So I'm going to reiterate. I think in theory, in discussion, Baby goes into space. Baby has fantastic adventures. Excellent idea for a show. Execution, though, C- is far too generous.
My final thought on Fantastic Max is that I'm glad we dusted this off early for our show, because now we never have to go back to it again and we can forget about it. My final thought is I'm sorry to both of you for making you watch that.
You will be.
It's not really us you should apologize to so much as our moderately faithful and loyal audience who have all probably disappeared.
I'm sorry to all three of you. I forgive me, please.
And there you have it. You can follow us on Twitter at WatchbotsPod, or follow me on Twitter at BoganPlays, or what the hell, follow us both. Please subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes, Spotify, or your platform of choice. For Dave and Shaylin, this is Ben. Thanks for listening to another episode of Watchbots. Until next week, let us leave you with one more burning question.
Either of you guys know the words to color my world?